was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Welcome to Mad Radio, your first responders network with John and Sam. And as you guys can see, John is not with us tonight. For those of you who know, he works for a company that does, a private company that does dispatch work all over the U.S. So he got called into work tonight, mostly to serve us here in Texas. For those of you guys who don't know, we are in the midst of a winter storm. And for Texas, this is like pretty serious because we don't get snow, we get ice. So we are right on the cusp of that. Where John lives, it's probably already started with the wintry mix. It's going to be here where I live in about an hour to 2 hours from now. And so if you are, well, just don't go out tonight. How about that, everybody? You know, everybody says if you don't have to be out tonight, please stay off the roads. There's a reason for that. Our first responders, they're going to answer every single call that they get. I don't want that call to be for you. Okay, so let's do our part as responsible citizens so that our first responders can stay safe as well. So if you do not have to be out tonight, especially tomorrow and even into Friday, please just let's give the roads a break. Let's allow our road crews to do what they need to do. And yeah, for those of you who are joining us that are not from Texas, so like we don't have snowplows, all right? So we are at the mercy of Mom Nature, and apparently we've done a lot of stuff to piss her off. So she's backhanding us tonight and into tomorrow, basically. So that being said, leading off with some craziness, you know, it has unfortunately not slowed down in terms of our first responder deaths in the line of duty, but also suicides. A big shout out to our partners at Blue Health for keeping those unfortunate statistics with that. And that is why we do this show. That is why John and I got into not only bringing this to Mad Radio, but also going beyond into creating our 501c3 called A Badge of Honor. And with our partners, we get to do the best job that we are blessed to be able to do. And that's bring you the resources, because while we don't have those letters behind our names, we're connected to a lot of folks that do. And John redid the intro. Yay, claps to John of the show. You got to see some of our partners. So thank you for joining us tonight. And, you know, I tend to, at the beginning of the show, John and I always kind of review the craziness that's going on. And it just came across Twitter. I got to bring up Loudoun County because we have talked a lot about the first responder community, specifically law enforcement, and really when it's time to push back against unlawful orders. Okay. We've had military folks on before. We talked about this before. If it is an absolute unlawful order, you are not bound by any rule, regulation, law to follow it. Period. End of story. And I will encourage the members who work for the Loudoun County Police Department to tell the principal of an elementary school, I'm not naming any names here, or the actual school. This is in Loudoun County, Virginia. She took to social media. She made a public statement that basically says if your kids show up to school unmasked, they will be arrested and charged with trespassing. It's elementary school. Okay. This is, again, coming from the principal of an elementary school, Loudoun County, Virginia. Your child will be arrested, charged with trespassing if they show up to school without a mask on. Law enforcement in Loudoun County, can we all agree, please, that your sole purpose on this earth for becoming a police officer is not to follow that order? Okay, we are not going to be arresting elementary school kids for not showing up with face diapers on their faces to school. We've heard the psychological ramifications. Parents are absolutely fed up. And, you know, it's our responsibility as parents. I have a high schooler myself. We're the ones in charge of our kids' health, not the school system, and certainly not a principal. So please, if you are listening and you are part of the Loudoun County, either the sheriff's department or the county police, we're not going to do that. We're not going to show up on Monday and start arresting children for not having masks on their face. Okay, so that's Sam's 2 cents and Sam's rant, because we have got really, really important things to discuss. Folks, the comment stream is open, so you are going to definitely, our guest is going to just blow you away tonight. Super incredible story, and it's really helped me to think out of the box. So while John and I have talked repeatedly about the throwing out the concept of, hey, if something's going on, okay, and you need to go see somebody to get help for symptoms of stress, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe you're actually having physical symptoms, nightmares. We can't unsee what we've seen. Maybe you think it's post-traumatic stress. It may be, it may not be, but you do know that you need to go see somebody. That seeing somebody, call it therapy, call it help, call it whatever you want, is not one size fits all. Okay. Myself, you've heard from Jeff Freeman, our other partner with the Badge of Honor, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, is a therapy protocol that worked for us. Okay. John has talked about different therapy protocols that he's done. John Edmondson, he does the therapy protocols, and it's not one size fits all for everybody with our partners at Healing Springs Ranch. And he's been on before saying that. And tonight we have on United States Army retired Colonel Roger Lintz, who runs an organization called Old School Timber Framing of Virginia. Now, retired Colonel Lintz, this guy, like top notch, U.S. Army Ranger, this training in Fort Benning. He was in for 31 years. He served our country. Psyops detachment. He went to Bosnia, served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He's been at the Pentagon, so at the highest level, received the Legion of Merit, Purple Heart recipient, 2 Bronze Star medals. He's the guy's, like, you know, you look at the ribbons and they're like this long on the uniform, and he is so absolutely deserving of every single one, because I want to say, reading his bio, when I first got it, it's like, what hasn't he experienced and seen? And so we're going to jump right into it. Colonel Lintz, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Mad Radio.
Hi, Sam. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Hey, your bio is extensive, and I know there's a lot to it because you experienced a lot, and it's why you're doing what you're doing right now. First, like, how did you decide, hey, I'm going not only into the Army, but I'm doing that coveted Ranger school?
I always wanted to be in the military, even when I was a little kid. And and I just chose to go to college, and they happened to have an ROTC program, and I was lucky. I had mentors who were airborne rangers, and that's what I wanted to be from the very beginning, was an airborne ranger infantryman. So it was easy for me. It was an easy decision.
So how old were you when you had these mentors?
Well, I went to college when I was 17. I was
wow.
a freshman when I was 17, and I met my mentors early on. You know, I was 18, 19, 20, and I knew that's what I wanted to do early on.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, it's with kind of watching the way things have changed over the years, certainly after I got out of college, and just seeing now it's the young people, some of them just really not having any direction at all, certainly not understanding the importance of mentoring and finding the people that can help shape you, can help shape your career, can help shape your future. Were those mentors, were they active, like on the job in the military?
Yes.
At the time, or were they? Okay, they were.
Yeah, they were active military, active Army, and I knew from the very beginning that that's what I wanted to do. When I was 17 years old, I had clarity of vision, and I knew I wanted to serve. I wanted to be an airborne ranger. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I never wavered for the 4 years I was in college. I ended up enlisting while I was in college into an Army Reserve unit so I could go to basic training and be a private, so I could understand what it's like to be a private before I ever became an officer. And I knew that I wouldn't be a good officer if I didn't know what it was like to be a private. So I enlisted in the Army Reserve and spent 3 years there in the Army Reserve, and then went straight into active duty right out of college as an infantry officer, and went straight to Fort Benning, the home of the infantry, did airborne ranger training, and then went to my first unit.
And wow. Okay. So tone has been set. You are on the path that you chose for yourself, 100% determined. You're in it. You get your first assignment. And what does that look like?
Oh, wow. I was a rifle platoon leader, brand new second lieutenant in charge of a 30-man rifle platoon. And it was a trial by fire, right from the very beginning. I was in charge, but luckily I had great mentors. I had great company commanders. I had great battalion commanders. I had people I could model myself after, who I wanted to be like. And and I loved my job. I absolutely loved everything that I did. I loved being a soldier. I loved being an officer. I loved the challenge. I would have done it for nothing. Luckily, the Army didn't know that, but I would have done it for nothing. I really did. I really enjoyed my career, and
That's fantastic.
yeah, I loved being with soldiers.
So I mentioned the Psyops. Now I want to just tell everybody we're not going to like take a deep dive into that because we've got a story. And yes, it's absolutely relevant to today's world, but how did that happen?
Well, this was I was a company commander. I was an infantry company commander, and at that time in the Army, just so happened they were looking for, in psychological operations, they were looking for airborne ranger qualified infantry officers to join psychological operations to lead PSYOP soldiers. And they offered a master's degree. It was an airborne assignment. They offered a master's degree in international relations, language training. And for me, it was like the best of every world. I mean, I got to be with soldiers. I got to get a master's degree. I got to learn a language, and I got to be on jump status. So it was the
it
best
sounds
of,
like it was
best
super
of
challenging.
It was very challenging. The training pipeline was extensive. It was a long process, but when you're committed to being the best, and you're committed to dedicating yourself to your job, it doesn't matter how hard it is or how long the training is, you're going to see it through. And I did, and I was so fortunate in my assignments. Psychological operations soldiers are very smart. They're very intelligent, and they're a cut above your average soldier. They're extremely smart. They understand the operational and strategic levels of operations, and it was just a very rewarding career field for me. I really loved it.
So, how would you use that? Well, first, let me back up and say, did you use that when you deployed to Bosnia Herzegovina? The Psyops, like, they sent you there as, okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was a PSYOP detachment commander there, and I was responsible for providing psychological operations support to the stabilization forces in Iraq. And I had spent a year in language training, learning to speak Serbo-Croatian before I deployed. And I won't go into the specifics of what we did,
yeah.
but it was a very rewarding experience. It was also my first exposure to the tragedy of armed conflict, and what man will do to his fellow man. That's when I was first exposed to the tragedies of war.
And did your specific being attached to that PSYOPs command, did that expose you to like even more, like were you on special missions that that the other troops were not on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was very fortunate in my job. I could operate in civilian clothing, unarmed, unaccompanied, in areas that other soldiers couldn't if they weren't in full battle, gear. My job allowed me to communicate with what we call key communicators, both in the Republic of Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and it took me to places that most people never had a chance to see. So I was able to interact with and witness things that other normal soldiers would never get a chance to do because it was just my job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would travel to areas and speak to people and gather what we call atmospherics of what was going on in a certain part of the country, and how could I influence that? How could I take that information back to my detachment, and how could we influence the operations going on in that area?
So you just mentioned that you saw a lot of, bad stuff. What did you do with it? How did you, when you came back to command, when it was time to report, you did your report, your debrief, whatever that looked like, and then you got some downtime. How did you process all of that?
I'll be honest with you. I was an infantry officer. I was a airborne ranger infantryman, but this was back during the Cold War. We were shooting paper targets. We weren't in combat.
Mm-hmm.
I had never been to combat. And this was my first exposure to real suffering, real tragedy. And I saw things that really bothered me. And I had a tough time with it initially. I mean, I saw kids, I saw elderly people, I saw things that shook me to my core and made me question whether or not I had the ability to do the job. And I had to do self-reflection. I literally had to say, am I able to do this job? And I had some early on. I had some nightmares early on after my initial exposure to some of these things. My physical reaction was nightmares, and I went to my boss in confidence and I said, "Hey, I don't know if I don't know if I can do this. This makes me question my ability as an officer. How can I deal with this?" I saw some things with kids, and my kids were the same age, and it made me it really bothered me.
Sure.
But I worked through it. When in my job, just like yours, just like most people who are first responders, who are professionals in this business, you don't show weakness. You don't, you push everything down, you block it out, and you just drive on. You just continue with your job. You don't let anybody know that anything's bothering you. You would never seek help. You just push it down, act like nothing's wrong, especially when you're a leader. You've got, my soldiers were seeing the same things. So I had to set the tone for them. I couldn't let them know that I was struggling.
Right.
And, but that was my first real wake up call. Like, this business that we're in, it's ugly. And
now
it got much uglier.
Yeah, I'm curious with, you went to your command, what was his response? Because like you said, you had to lead your guys. So was there any good advice now, knowing, what we've all been through, what we would consider good advice? What was his advice? And was it something that you could take back to your guys?
No, I will tell you, I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, I just saw two kids on the side of the road getting shot. And I don't know if I can deal with this. I've got two kids at home and I'm struggling." And this is in 1996. And his response was, "Hey, don't let anybody know that, suck it up, keep it to yourself." That was just the mentality. Don't let anybody know that. You're okay. You'll be just fine. Take care of your soldiers. So that was the lesson that I learned. Don't ask for help, because people are going to look at you as if you're weak. You know, they're going
Right.
to look
And
at you as if you're
in leadership in the military, you take care of your your soldiers, you step up, you do what you need to do.
yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, even at the expense of your mental wellness over it and trying to work through it. Now that followed you, because, you know, like we have our filing cabinet, so you just put everything you saw in that filing cabinet or in the trunk, and you did a lot of different things in between, and then here comes OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and you're right back in it. Now, I would say it was probably a little bit more difficult to like go out and blend in with that population.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. With your blonde hair
Yeah.
and blue eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I couldn't blend in Bosnia either, but luckily I spoke the language. So most of them thought, wow, were you born here? Were your parents raised here? At least it gave me an in. I don't speak Arabic. But you know, there were many other really traumatic experiences before I even went to OIF, with the loss of, you know, soldiers that had deployed, other traumatic events, and even in training. You know, training is very dangerous, and I've lost soldiers in training where, you know, it takes an impact. It really does. It takes a toll on you and has an impact on you. But you have to just push it down. You can't let it out. You can't dwell on it. You have to act like I'm okay, and I'm in control, and I'm okay. And you just push it down. And I did that successfully my entire career, even through both deployments in Iraq. Everything that I saw, every tragedy, every horrible thing that I experienced, I just pushed it down, and I wouldn't let it control me. I would just compartmentalize it. I called it.
We have Mandy on that says, yep, compartmentalized. So you had mentioned kids, and how are you coming home and dealing with family life? How is that going, since you knew, you know, the Army's telling you to push it down, you got guys to worry about, you can't show this. What did family life look like?
It was a struggle. When I first, I don't care what anybody says, you know, it's very difficult to come from a combat environment after, in my case, 13 months, my first deployment, and to be under constant stress for 13 months and then come home and try to flip the switch. Mm-hmm. I had some difficulty. One experience that I remember the most is I came home after being in Iraq when it was a pretty violent time in 2004, and I was all over Iraq, and traveling in Humvees all over Iraq, and having dozens of near-death experiences and close calls. And I remember when I first came home, I took my son, who was 7, and it was a Saturday morning, and I put him in the car, and we were driving. I don't know where we were going, but it was early in the morning, and there was no traffic on the road. It was just a beautiful Saturday morning. And I pulled up to a stoplight. There were no other cars around. And a car pulled up beside me, like I didn't see it. I didn't even see it in my mirror. It just pulled up beside me and stopped. And I just about had a heart attack. I thought it was a car bomb.
Wow.
and that I thought they got me, and they got my son, and I had a tough time for a little while, just letting my guard down,
Mm-hmm.
just
Sure.
trying to decompress. And I just remember telling myself, Roger, you're not in Iraq now. People are not trying to kill you. You have to relax. You have to just relax.
Yeah.
And I did. I got through it, but I remember it was a very scary experience.
Yeah, Mandy is asking, when you came home, did you isolate yourself a lot to cope?
After I came home from my first deployment, not so much. I was okay. I kind of put everything away, and I got on with my job, and I was fine. I thought I was fine. I just put everything away. During my second deployment, on my first deployment, I ended up getting wounded on my anniversary, and got a Purple Heart out of the deal. But that was just part of the job, So when I came home from my first deployment, everything was fine. I moved on, and I moved to a new job, and I just, didn't bother me. It wasn't until after my second deployment when I broke my back that I became a hermit. I isolated myself. I was bedridden for 2 years, and that was the biggest struggle of my life, both mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally. That was my biggest challenge. And yes, I did isolate. I wouldn't leave the house.
Well, let's get into that, because not only is isolation huge, but can you walk us through, how you were injured, as much detail as you can,
Sure.
as you're allowed to give? And
sure.
Yeah.
I was in my pinnacle career assignment. I was a lieutenant colonel. It was the job that I had been striving for my whole career, and I was a task force commander of a psychological operations task force in Iraq, and it was the assignment that I had worked my whole career towards. And my command sergeant major and I got on a helicopter, and we were flying around Iraq to go see our soldiers, go visit all of our soldiers. We had 3-man teams throughout Iraq, and it was a fluke. I had all my gear on. I had 2 weapons, all my stuff, and it was at night, and we were doing a hot refuel in a CH-47, and we had to get off the aircraft at night, and I wasn't wearing my night vision goggles. It was just dark, and I walked down the ramp, and I kind of hopped off the ramp, and I landed in a depression. And when I landed, my back exploded, and I knew that I had broken my back, and I knew it was bad. My command sergeant major, like I said, it was dark, but he saw me, and he came over and he says, "Hey, are you okay?" And I says, "No, I'm really not." And so he helped me get to our, what we call a CHU, containerized housing unit, and I spent 4 days just laying down, thinking that it would heal and I would be okay. Eventually,
so he helped you up off the ground, like you're walking to this place.
He had to help me walk. I couldn't walk.
Wow. Okay, so
And
broken back, he's getting you up, supporting you. Okay. Wow.
he helps me, and he's telling me the whole time, "Hey, you really need to go to the medics." And I'm like, I can't go to the medics. This is my job. I'll be okay. I'll just
Right.
push through this. And we ended up getting back to Camp Victory in Baghdad, and my I would try to dress myself in the morning, and I would scream
Wow.
because of
Okay.
the pain. So he would have to come in and help me get dressed, help me get my boots on, help me get dressed to go to work. And I lasted about 2 weeks of trying to just suck it up. And after 2 weeks, I couldn't, I could not walk anymore. Like my legs just wouldn't work. And I was trying to get into our office. We had 2 steps, and I finally couldn't do it anymore. And I had tears running down my face. And my command sergeant major, Frank, goes, "You're going to the hospital." And I said, "Yes, I am. I'm going to the hospital." And I was medevaced out of Iraq to Landstuhl, Germany. From there to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. And there they discovered that I had broken my back. I had ruptured a disc in my back and broken my facet joints in my vertebrae. And so I thought, okay, no big deal. You guys can just fix me. Just do the surgery and fix me. And I thought I would be back in Iraq in 45 days. But during the surgery to repair my vertebrae, the neurosurgeon mistakenly put 2 pedicle screws through my L4, L5 nerve roots coming off of my spinal cord, and corkscrewed and crushed both of those nerve roots. And I came out of surgery screaming, and I thought my legs were going to explode and that I was on fire. And they thought that I was having either a reaction to the anesthesia or a PTSD reaction from what they thought was from when I hurt myself in Iraq, because I kept saying a helicopter. I literally thought I was still in a helicopter that had crashed and it was on fire. That's what I thought. And their response was to just give me massive injections of morphine. And this went on for a period of about 18 hours of me screaming, them giving me morphine, me pushing through the morphine and screaming. And my wife, who had flown down to meet me, was at my bedside and the whole time. And she noticed that I was getting purple in the face and I wasn't breathing. And so she would come over and shake me and say, "Roger, take a breath, breathe." Well, I was unconscious, but I would respond and I would breathe. And finally, the nurse came in and said, "Is he always that color?" And she said, "No, he's not always that color. He's not breathing."
Yeah.
And this has been going on for 18 hours. So and by this point, they had done a CT on me. I don't remember it, but they had done a CT scan on me, and they found that both my nerve roots were crushed and that I was going to need another surgery. But it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they convinced my wife to go get some sleep, to go back to the hotel, which was a 5-minute walk away, and go get some rest. He's going back in for surgery at 6 in the morning. You can come back and he'll be ready. Well, when she left, I went into acute respiratory failure and
Oh my.
coded. I aspirated all the fluids in my stomach into my lungs, and I was in cardiac arrest when the crash team got to me. They Narcaned me, gave me Narcan, and I came to. And I know what it's like to be tortured. I know what the pain was so intense that I was begging them to kill me, to hit me in the head, knock me out, kill me. Please make this stop. And eventually I passed out from the pain and woke up 5 or 6 days later, intubated in the ICU. They had gone in the next day and removed all the screws and everything, but the damage was done.
Right.
And unbeknownst to me, on the second surgery, the revision procedure, when the neurosurgeon put the screws in this time, it breached. One of the screws breached and was sticking out of my vertebrae and pressed into my vena cava, my superior vena cava. So the screw is pressed into my vena cava. I don't know this. Nobody's told me this.
Right.
I end up leaving. I was in the Wounded Warrior Regiment for three months, and I end up leaving. The Army PCS'd me, or I had new orders to go to the Pentagon, and I was just in excruciating pain for 10 months. I had trouble walking, couldn't sit, and was in horrific pain. Walter Reed picked up, the neurosurgery department there picked up my care, and they did a CT scan, and the neurosurgeon came in and said, I have to operate on you immediately. I have to take these screws out because it's pressed into your vena cava. You know, you could bleed out walking down the sidewalk. So I said, okay, great. So he did. He operated on me, and I spent the next 1 year, in horrific pain, screaming. I would wake up screaming every night. My wife was in bed with me going through the same thing I was, because I would wake up screaming in pain. And I kept telling the doctors and nurses at each of my checkups that I was having problems, that I was in horrific pain and waking up screaming. And they said, well, you're a complex case. It's going to take you a long time to heal. So I said, okay, I bought into that and I accepted that.
And how much medication, like pain medication, are you on at this point?
Sam, I don't know if you know what fentanyl is.
I do. Yes, I do.
At one point, I was taking 250 micrograms of fentanyl, transdermal, 125 on this hand and 125 on this hand, 250 micrograms. And I was an absolute zombie. I was actually going into respiratory failure at home in my bed.
I was going to say that's, we listen to what's going on in Texas now with the border and all the fentanyl seizures and how little a dose. We've had many, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of deaths from, and you're wearing the patches. Yeah, that's the classic.
Well, I started off at 12 and a half micrograms. That was the starter dose. But what was ironic is that when I would tell them I'm screaming from pain, instead of asking me why are you screaming? What's causing the pain? They would just up my dose.
Right. And
they would up my medications and my narcotics. And for a period of 2 years, I was on the most intense narcotic regimen you can imagine. I was a walking zombie, but the
yeah, and of
narcotics didn't
course,
stop it.
this whole time, you know, all of the post-traumatic stress, everything that you saw and everything, all of what is happening with your brain being totally like a zombie and numbed out, that's not even, nothing's getting processed. It's all singularly focused. How do we stop the pain? Just give them more drugs. Yeah.
Sam, it took
Wow.
me literally to the brink of suicide. And I wasn't suicidal. I was the guy that always counseled other people about not choosing suicide. Suicide was never never even a possibility for me. And after a full year of screaming, I went to my neurosurgeon on the 1 year checkup at Walter Reed, and he I don't know what he looked at. I just had a CT scan, and getting up off the table from the CT scan, I collapsed onto my wife and the nurse, trying to get off the table. This is after 1 year after the surgery. So I should be healing, but I'm not. And I'm an active duty full colonel at this point. I'm an active duty 06.
Oh, okay.
And I have tears streaming down my face. I'm so full of rage and anger. I want this to stop. And I go down to my neurosurgeon's office, and he's the head of neurosurgery. The guy does all revision procedures. So I trusted him. And he comes in and he sits down and he looks at his computer and he says, "Well, it looks like you're healing fine. Come back and see me in another year." And I
like, what planet is this guy on?
I looked at him, and this is the important part for me. This was the decision that changed my life. I looked at him and I looked at the door. And I knew if I walked out the door, if I just accepted what he said and I walked out the door, I was going to go home and end my life. And I didn't want to end my life. I had a wife and 2 kids that I loved with all that I had. But I had a choice. I was to the point where I couldn't. I'm not a quitter. I've never quit anything in my life. I won't quit. And in this case, it took me to the point where I was ready to tap out and quit. And I got mad. I said, "I don't know what you're looking at, doctor, but there's something wrong with me." And he didn't like that. He did not like that. I think he thought I was malingering or wanting a disability or wanting more narcotics, probably. And anyways, he said, "Okay, we'll do some tests." And they did a CT myelogram, and they found that I had failed to fuse. I had an 80% deficit in my vertebrae, and 2 of my screws had pulled out.
Oh,
so I was walking around for a year with a broken back. But they didn't catch it. And had I decided to walk through that door, I would have just been a statistic. I would have been one of those guys that committed suicide and no one would have ever known why. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live. And luckily, the medical system responded. They did another surgery on me, and that stopped all that micro movement. But the damage was done. The 2 years that I spent bedridden just basically it took a lot of my spirit away. It took a lot of my self-worth away, and I became a hermit. I did not want to be around people or crowds, or I didn't want to interact with society. I just wanted to stay in my room, in my bed. And I spent 2 years doing that. I didn't go to my daughter's college visits. I couldn't go. My wife went. I missed out on all of my kids' experiences during those 2 years while they were in school. And I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to die. It's in this bed. And that's what I found timber framing.
Yeah, what was it? Getting a lot of questions. Mandy asked, what brought you through to the other side?
I knew that if I didn't get out of that bed, I was going to die in it. I knew that. I had basically given up, and I was going to die in that bed, and I didn't want to die. So my wife put a newspaper in the bathroom. She didn't tell me about it. I just happened to hobble into the bathroom and find this newspaper. And it was an article about a local area nonprofit that did blacksmithing. They're called Black Horse Forge. And they had horses. And I said, I want to go to that place, and I just want to be around the horses. Mm-hmm. I wasn't interested in the blacksmithing, but I just wanted to be around the horses. I didn't want to be around anybody else. I just wanted to be around the horses. And so I went there and I shoveled, cleaned out stalls and fed and watered the horses and brushed them. And that was my first step back to health, was to go get out of my house, go find something that I loved. And the horses did it for me. And then I started timber framing. Yeah, they are special
animals.
I spent many hours in a stall with a horse, just me and that horse, and cleaning out the stall, watering and feeding them and brushing them. And I shed many tears, just me and that horse. And I purged a lot of my demons in those stalls. And I kept fighting to get back to health.
Yeah, well, I think that certainly your mentorship and the training, being a Green Beret, that never quit attitude, like you're going to see things through, that it sounds like that probably is the key piece that kept you going. And then we've had a couple of guests on. We're partnered with an organization called Our Watch that they do equine therapy. So the horses mirror our emotion. I'm listening to a podcast right now about a veteran that at first, the horse was like, oh no, you're going to stay away from me, because, they pick up on everything that you're giving off. And sometimes, it's like you just can't get near them. And other times they'll be right there with you. And it's a fascinating thing. So how did you go from, you found healing with the horses to now deciding to start old school timber framing? And this was around 2019, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I started, I had all the equipment. I had a chainsaw and I had an Alaskan mill, and I've always done woodworking, but I had never done timber framing. And it was something that interested me, but I had never done it. So I thought it would be a good thing to learn. So I taught myself, and I started just with trees that I had, and I started with a chainsaw, and what I found was it was like my own little therapy session when I would cut into a log, turn it into a beam, cut into that beam, and then make something beautiful out of it and chisel the tenons and cut the mortises. And I would literally spend hours just working on the timber. And for me, it was therapy. Just spending hours doing that was therapy for me. And it worked. I did it for months. Yeah.
So as you're going through this, I'm looking down, I'm writing comments, and anybody that's tuned in before, Sam and typing and talking doesn't always go so well. So you're turning logs into these beams and creating something beautiful. That's your therapy. And who was the first person that you shared this like aha moment with?
Well, I discovered that, through my aha moment was this really helped me. Like after doing it for a couple of years, I realized this really helped me. Like I'm not the same guy I was 2 years ago. Like I'm happy now. I'm excited. I feel like I'm me. I'm back to who I was. And the only thing I could attribute it to was the fact that I had spent so many hours immersed in this hands-on passion of mine. And so I thought, I need to share this. If it worked for me, maybe it'll work for others. And so I just started the school, and people have come out in droves. And I have combat vets, I have first responders, law enforcement, federal law enforcement, people you would never think even had ever suffered from PTSD, I find out had suffered from post-traumatic stress. And I don't know, it's a very unique thing, and it's a neat experience to see all these people come together.
Now kind of set it up. So how do you explain? I'm playing this through in my mind. Okay, I'm in your area, or maybe I'm outside of Virginia, and I can get to you. And a buddy says, "Oh, Sam, you got to come to this. It's called Old School Timber Framing of Virginia." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? What is this?" They explain the beams and I'm like, "And this is going to help me with my post-traumatic stress." Yeah, you just got to come. So I arrive. It kind of like set it up for me so that I connect with the wood, with the tools. Yeah.
You come in, and I have so many people that come to my classes that are veterans, that are first responders. And the first thing I do is talk to them about how to take this beam and make something beautiful out of it through hard work, through your hands, through sweat, through working through adversity, because it's not easy. You got to work in order to get something beautiful out of it. And I share my story. I share my story and what I did. And so we have a community of like-minded individuals. And, it's like whittling, sitting on a porch, whittling, on a stick, and how some people find that to be like therapeutic. Well, taking a log and making a beautiful beam out of it with other people who are suffering in silence, just like you. There's just something, I can't even describe it. I can't tell you why it works, but for me, it does. And I've had a lot of people in my classes tell me that it's peaceful, that they felt good doing it. And I'm just getting started really in this. I want to offer a lot more than just the chance to work on a piece of wood.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
Dwayne, Dwayne points out, Dwayne, thank you for joining us tonight. And he says a key thing, it forces you to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I've had people come to my classes and I could look at them and tell you they're suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Just by looking in their eyes, I can tell they're suffering. And I can tell them, hey, I know what it's like to suffer in silence, and you don't have to. You can break out of that prison that you're in, that you put yourself in. You can break out of it. You don't need drugs. You don't need, well, I shouldn't say you don't need counseling and those things. Those things help.
Mm-hmm.
But the community that I'm building or trying to build are other veterans and first responders who have all suffered. We can share in what we've been through, and we can all grow individually and grow together and make something beautiful out of something. It's not ugly, but a log is rough. It's rough around
Sure.
the edges. And when we're done, we've got something that's beautiful and it's going to outlast all of us. It'll last for hundreds of years. And so far, I've been very fortunate. I've had nothing but great comments and great feedback from all the students who come through my class. I have met so many nice people and met so many good friends, and I hope I've helped a few people along the way.
I'm pretty sure you've helped a whole lot of people. Everyone certainly that has walked through your door and taken a part, not just talking to you, but joined you with the timber framing. One of the biggest things that I got to experience and that John got to experience is, we had our time away in nature. And when you can, it's kind of a double-edged sword at first, because when you quiet yourself down, as you know, when this gets active, if you don't have something to immerse yourself in, the timber framing, the active talking to somebody who's been through stuff that you've been through, the hiking, the climbing, horses, whatever it is, you can't sit and dwell. You can't sit in your crap, right?
Yeah.
Because because the brain doesn't allow you to do that. And also, it's also holding people responsible for their own stuff. It's like, hey, we're doing this together. We've all been through the crap. Let's talk about it, but let's do something. Let's create something about it. And I just love how you've created a community that it's like, we're doing this, and it's a process. It's not like I'm not completely familiar yet with what exactly you do. I mean, I'm listening to you, but it sounds like it's a process going from this rough log to finished product. How long would that take?
Oh my goodness. My classes on Saturdays, which are free, I don't charge anything, are 5 hours. And I teach, the first class is the basics of timber framing. And it takes my students, when they first come, at least 3 hours to make the first joint, the first mortise and tenon joint. After that, I've had so many people come back for multiple classes that now we're doing more advanced things for them, but this in June, we're going to be building a timber frame shed, and we're going to do it as a group, and we're going to donate it to either a first responder, a Gold Star family, a veteran, or someone who, I don't know, we're going to find a person deserving, and we're going to donate it to them. We're going to give it to them. And that's what we want to do. You know, that's all we want to do as a group. Do something together and give it away, you know?
Yeah.
And
now, how do people find you? What are you on social media? Yeah.
I'm on Facebook, Old School Timber Framing of Virginia on Facebook. And I don't have a website. Most of my advertising is by word of mouth. People, you can go to my Eventbrite page, Old School Timber Framing of Virginia, Eventbrite, and you can sign up for classes. They're all free. You don't need anything, no tools, no experience, no anything. You just show up. And I teach for 5 hours, but most of my classes go for 6.5 because nobody wants to leave. And I teach them at my house, teach them at my home. I have all the tools we need. You don't need anything. I even have all the timber. So I have my own bandsaw mill, so I mill up the beams and posts for my students to use. And it's just been a great experience, Sam. I'm blessed. I thank God that I'm still here. I'm a survivor. I didn't succumb to my demons. And I pray that anybody listening to this program right now that's suffering in silence will realize that you don't have to succumb. You can. There's so much life left out there to live. So
amen to that. Yeah, you got me there. Yeah, amen to that. And when you talk about all this equipment and everything that you have, the mill, you're outside. You're in Stafford County, right? So you're out in beautiful. And let me tell you, folks, beautiful Stafford County, incredible part of Virginia. You know, John and I are both East Coasters. I don't know if he's ever been out country there. I have. I actually miss the fall season when the leaves change. I mean, that was the place to go. And it is to be able to, again, connect with nature, connect with that piece of wood, turn it into something, do it at an incredible setting. It doesn't get any better than that.
I wish you could see the joy on my students' faces. This last class, they actually built a timber frame sawhorse and a complete sawhorse. And no other class had ever done that. Most classes just get one mortise and one tenon joint. We don't use screws or glue or nails. We peg everything with wooden pegs. And this class was so excited to finish this sawhorse with all of the joinery and all of the wooden pegs. They stayed until normally we end at 2. They stayed until 3:30, so 15:30. So 6.5 hours they stayed. And
that's awesome. Well, we can see the pictures because all we have to do is go on your Facebook page.
Yeah, that class photo. They're standing. 2 of my students are standing on the sawhorse that they built, and it's just a lot of fun. It's very therapeutic for someone who needs to decompress and focus on making something beautiful out of something ugly, which, and that's kind of an analogy for how I felt when I wanted to give up. I felt ugly. I didn't think that I had any reason to go on, and I was so wrong. And I wish anyone out there who is struggling, and I know not everyone reaches out for help. I didn't. I suffered in silence. But there's so much you can do to help yourself. You don't have to give up. You don't have to succumb. And I'm glad I didn't. And
well, your smile says it all. And thank you so much for that message, and for taking us through your, devastating yet incredible journey to be able for you to just heal people now. And that's why, we do what we do in Mad Radio every week. That's what we do with a badge of honor, because it really is, it's up to us. It's the folks that have been through the stuff to show others that it's okay not to be okay. We
That's
just
right.
don't want you to stay there, and there's help. And you don't have to sit on a couch if you don't want to. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. And what I love most, and what I'm going to take away from this, is the legacy. Because as you said, the timber goes on. It's not going. And so your being, your soul, your pain, your stress, your joy, everything that you put into that lives there, and it will go on forever.
For hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Yeah. And it is
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm making something that's going to outlast me and many generations after me. And that's how I kind of equate it, is I'm leaving my passion. My passion is creating something beautiful that's going to outlast me long after I'm gone. And that's my gift to humanity, if you will.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. I would love to continue to just go on and on and on. Folks, go to Facebook or Eventbrite and check out Old School Timber Framing of Virginia. I've had it running on the bottom of the screen. Put it in the comments. Colonel Lintz, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your effort. We could feel your story, every ounce of it. We're so thankful that you're here. We're so grateful that you had the mentors that instilled in you when you were 17, that it's like, hey, we don't give up. And when you went into the Green Berets, we don't give up. And puppy.
You want to say hi? You want to say hi? Oh.
We love the pups.
Hey, you want to say hi?
Hey, puppy. What a great looking dog. That's part of healing too. Mine is sound asleep right here on the couch next to me.
This is Dutch. He's my chocolate lab. And I had a service dog for a few years when I couldn't walk. I needed a service dog to help me walk. And this is his great nephew. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, my service dog is retired now, and I no longer need him. I'm okay to walk now. But this is his great nephew, and I love him very much. He helps me a lot.
That's fantastic. Yeah, dogs, horses, lumber, timber, it's all good.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Again, thank you so much, folks. Reach out to Colonel Lintz. He is there to help. Again, Old School Timber Framing of Virginia. Colonel Lintz, final word what is your overall message to everybody that's listening out there?
Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep fighting. There's life left to be lived. You don't have to succumb.
Well, thank you, sir, so much. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your service to our country, and keep spreading the message. Keep providing hope, and I will be in touch. We will be in touch. There's lots more incredible things to do.
Thank you so much, Sam, for having me on. I really appreciate it. You're doing the Lord's work, and I truly I thank you so much, and for all that you're doing for everyone. It is my honor to be on here tonight.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Until next time, be in touch.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, what an incredible show tonight. Incredible messaging. Folks, I just take the words, please do not give up, from Colonel Lintz. He's been through a lot, and he's the epitome of strength, perseverance, toughness, you name it. And he's doing incredible things. I want to thank everybody for joining us, our Facebook family, our YouTube family. Hey, we're still growing on both platforms. So if you're listening to YouTube, jump on over to our Facebook, and it's at Making a Difference TX on Facebook. Follow us there. And if you're part of our Facebook family, jump on over to our YouTube page, and that's at Mad Radio Texas, all spelled out, and follow us over there. We have got incredible things going on right now. And we talked a little bit about a badge of honor. That's me and John's, and Jeff and John's 501c3. If you are a first responder, we have got workshops. We have started family workshops as well. So we've got one coming up in February, the end of February. We've got another one scheduled for March. We've got it all scheduled out through June. Visit abadgeofhonor.com. You can click the links there to sign up. And we are traveling for all these workshops. Will be in East Texas again for the one at the end of February. A lot of you tuned in the last show. We have talked about Carry the Load. For those of you who do not know Carry the Load, it is an organization that gives back to veterans and first responders all over the United States. We kick off the relays in April. We meet here in Dallas. They have 5 relays meet here in Dallas over the Memorial Day weekend, and a badge of honor is just been so incredibly blessed to have been chosen to be a nonprofit partner of Carry the Load. You can find out more. Again, go to our website, abadgeofhonor.com. You can join our team and help us in the mission, and help us fundraise, or you can direct donate to the team. And again, all of the money goes to support our veterans and our first responders in helping heal them, because we have got a huge mission in front of us. We can't do it alone. We can't do it without Carry the Load. We can't do it without Colonel Lintz. We can't do it without all of our partners. We can't do it without you spreading the word about Mad Radio and everything that we talk about right here. So thank you so very much. I know I'm leaving out a lot today. This was a heavy show. This was an impactful show. So again, we thank you for joining us on Wednesdays. We're doing programming the first and third Wednesday, but we will be back with you next week, because we have an incredible friend of Mad Radio, an incredible friend of A Badge of Honor. He is the inspiration behind PTSD 911, a documentary that is being made. He will be here in Texas next week. We will be with Conrad Weaver on the show. We will be talking about everything that's been going on with PTSD 911. So you will want to tune in next week, and as well as the following Wednesday. So we're going the first, second, and third Wednesday this month. Again, thank you so much for joining us, for all of our military out there. Thank you for protecting us here on the home front. God bless all of the veterans. Thank you for putting yourself in harm's way and then allowing us to benefit from that. You are in our thoughts and prayers. All the first responders out there, we hold you in prayer every single day. We're thinking about you. We want you to get home safe. Please, if you are experiencing the trials, the tribulations, the stresses of the job, you are not alone. Sorry, my my screen is stuck up here tonight. You are not alone in that journey. Please reach out. If it's not directly to us at a badge of honor, if it's not to Colonel Lintz, who is on tonight, reach out to somebody, because we are there for you and with you every step of the way. So until next time, folks, thank you again. We're going to leave you tonight with a clip from PTSD 911, their documentary. Again, Conrad will be with us next week. Take care, everybody, and be safe out there if you're in Texas. Good night.
After working for 20 plus years as a police officer, not having backup is kind of scary. While I was trying to heal from the traumas that had put me in the position that I was in, I suddenly lost all the support of all the guys I worked with.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that we don't picture it in our head. I never thought that I would have to deal with that type of call, and I was not prepared.
I remember the moment I was like, okay, I was up all night. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma. You know, the novelty of the job wore off really quick.
They didn't offer any help. They said I needed to see a psychiatrist, that there was probably nothing wrong with me, that I was just being a baby about it.
I couldn't think of how to get help without ruining my job.
I know personally, on many occasions, that a police officer can go in and ask for help, and the chief will fire him.
They forced me to resign because they just could not understand how that could have affected me, since I was just a dispatcher.
I just thought to myself, if I can't do this job, what can I do? What else? I put all the eggs in this basket. Who am I if I'm not a firefighter?
I have, 4 years till retirement, and I gotta be okay, and I gotta make it.